All right, got about 2.5 pounds of mud on the wheel. It's a little heavy. I think it's good to start with extra material because you can always trim it off the end, especially when you're starting out like I am. I've only been throwing for about a year and a half, so but loving it. Making ramen bowls. Functions pretty straightforward, obviously. Working on different forms, different shapes, different base sizes, different angles. That's about it. I think I do about 5 different ramen bowls. Just playing again with the form factor. Just took off that bat and gonna load on another one. So give it a quick wipe off and then drop some more mud on it and do the next one. It's a fairly quick process. Maybe it's 10 or 15 minutes to spin each one, but fairly quick. So there's 2 of them, and they are air drying right now. So wet clay overnight turns to leather clay, and right now they are dry to the touch, but still a little bit wet. And here I'm starting to trim the bowls. You can see there's a little bit of wobble in the top and the edges. Trying to clean that up. You can sharpen up the angles. This is when we normally put the foot in, but just working on any details, thinning the walls out. So this is why it's good to have a little extra material going into this process because you can easily take it off. So I'm at the studio now, and I think they're bisque fired, so they are hard. So they're cooked at about 1,000 degrees, and now they're ready for glazing. And this is what I'm doing now. So process of the bisque firing is to harden it, but also dry it out. And so when you dip it into the glaze, all the water base goes into the clay and just leaves behind the chemical compounds that will then turn into the hardened shell of it. Alright, in the shop now, doing some rough cuts on a chunk of straight grain red oak. Using a table saw on this one, gives nice straight, even cuts. Then we'll head over to the band saw, where it's more of just a safety issue, cutting small little blanks out. I'd rather not have my hands close to the table saw. So a little bit easier. The cuts aren't as smooth or as even on the bandsaw, but I'm walking away with all my fingers, so that's good. Back to the table saw right now, cutting some details at the top of the blanks. These will be little grooves that will hold the thread detail at the end. So speeding this up, just doing little notches all around. I think I'm making 8 pair of chopsticks, so obviously 16 pieces. Setting up for some more detail. It's just a chunk of wood with an angle, maybe it's 35 degrees or something like that, and a piece of rough sandpaper. So just working on the end, you'll see creating a little prism design on the back end of the chopstick. So I went through and did that for all of them. I need to plane these squares down into round shapes to make the chopsticks, but in order to do that, I need to create a jig to hold the square blanks at a 45-degree angle. So right now I'm chamfering a couple channels in so I can lay this chopstick in really like this workbench that I made. It has a top that comes off, so I can just drill right into it, glue on it. When it gets dirty, I just replace it and start over fresh. So here are a couple lines in to sort of reference 1/3, 2/3 as I go through the process of turning these squares into circles. Just making sure they're consistent for all of them. Here I have one, the very first one I use that as a reference, so that each one I go and make sure that all the angles are somewhat the same. Tapers are around the same diameter. Good picture at the end of doing all that. Now, like the most woodworking, lots of sanding. Just cleaning it up, taking the edges off. Here I'm doing the finishing for the chopsticks. So we have, I think, 3 different styles. One I'm just leaving natural. One I am using a wood bleach on to lighten it. And one I am using a vinegar solution to ebonize it. So you'll see this coming out. That's the vinegar base. So the first ones were the bleaching. That takes a little while to dry. And then this is a vinegar base. And what it does is it actually draws the tannins out of the wood. So you're not staining it, you're actually pulling the color out of the wood. So it's a pretty cool technique. A pretty dramatic technique too. It's great for red oak, which has a lot of natural tannins in it. So 1/3 of them ebonized, bleached, and kept neutral. So this is where I'm putting in the thread detail for into those notches that I cut out earlier on. I got this idea when I was building a fly rod with my neighbor, and this is part of the process of that build, and that's where I got the inspiration for creating chopsticks and this specific design to it. I ended up sticking them into the drill and zipping them through because it took so long to thread just one of them. All right, into the kitchen, starting to make our garnishes for the noodle bowl. Pickled red onions, pretty fast technique, just slicing them thin. Hitting with some salt and sugar, let that sit for maybe an hour or so, and that just helps break them down, draws out some moisture. And then I'm just pouring over pre-seasoned rice vinegar, so it's got some good flavor in it. Lots of different variations on this. You can certainly explore this more later on, but nice and easy. Make it the day before, everything comes together. Got some crunch, some good flavor. Making the noodles now. Nothing too complex here. I do use baking soda. Baking soda lowers the pH, which gives it a better texture, more chewy texture. It's traditional in a more ramen style noodle. So just whisking in the eggs. I've been cooking professionally for about 20 years. I've been doing woodworking for about 5 or so, and I just got into pottery about a year and a half. Just to give you a little timeline. So my safety zone is the kitchen. So I've been doing this for a while. Just hand kneading, bring the dough together, let it sit, hydrate, give it another knead. I'll do that a couple times until it gets to the texture that I'm looking for. Running the dough through the flat rollers on the KitchenAid. It's definitely sped up. I leave them pretty thick, so we'll start at 0 and went to maybe 5 or so. I think I cut the dough at least into half, so not quarters and just did it in sections. I'm going to do a hand cut, more rustic style on this. Keep them a little thicker too. So it'll be a thick, heavy hand-cut noodle bowl. There are all the ramen bowls glazed, finished chopsticks on top, so all a little bit different. We're starting to plate up now. Got some 8-minute eggs, some boilers as they call it now. So cooked pasta, cooked noodles. Got a basic broth in here. Some elements of soy, miso, seaweed. I guess a chicken stock base. Put some garnishes on there. This 8-minute egg. This is tofu, sliced real thin. It had the texture of whitefish. It was pretty cool. Pickled onions. A little extra seasoning on top. Throw in the sticks. Send it.